Texas heading to Waco to face the red-hot Baylor Bears, who are fresh off of their loss to Oklahoma. Texas basketball gets a reality check in the Garden, losing to the Georgetown Hoyas. And we're going to talk maybe the next Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, getting red hot in the NFL. This is the 1-0 Sports Show.
Texas finally 1-0, finally riding for the brand, although Tom Herman did say they were 1-0 10 times last season.
Feinbaum, I'll give him like half a point.
Dude, you like okay. Feinbaum way too much.
Yeah, all right. I'm like
I'm
the Feinbaum of the show.
By the way, that looks Ohio State. Is that an omen? Give me that Longhorn hat.
Oh man!
Hook him, baby.
All right, he's pulling the Corso.
Hello and welcome into the 1-0 Sports Show. I'm your host, Thomas Fish, joined alongside Robert Trevino. Big show this week. We always say that, but that's because every show
is a big show.
We're going to be joined in a little bit by legendary, famous celebrity Ari Bastami. He's going to be talking some sports, a lot of sports. We're going to have him join us for questions from the crowd. And maybe even more important than that, our sports director, the guy who's currently behind the scenes doing everything right now, Josh Martella, is going to join us for some picks.
I got to tell you, I love Aria, but to see Josh on camera,
it's big time.
Very excited. Every week is big. We're trying to do a 1-0. Let's start out how we usually do. Who's hot and who's not?
Who's hot? You saw it during the intro. The Baltimore Ravens. Tell you what, they go at home against the Texans, a good Texans team who we're going to talk about a little bit more in a second. They win 41-7. Lamar Jackson continues to put up video game numbers. It's not just Louisville now, it's in the NFL. He had 301 yards, 4 touchdowns. The defense had 7 sacks. This team is legit. And you look at them, a couple weeks ago they beat the Patriots, then they blow out the Bengals, and here they are blowing out another good team in the Texans. This is a good football team, and if I was anybody else in the NFL right now, I wouldn't want to play them.
Yeah, would you be a little worried about maybe teams getting tape on Lamar Jackson and being able to adapt to
It's definitely possible, but look, the tape was out there last year. They knew what he could do. Granted, it's a new system, but people knew it. Like you can expect that rookie year. We saw that with guys like RG3. But this is his second year. The tape has been out there. Maybe we'll see something change, but at this point, it's his athleticism. It's the way that Harbaugh has worked the system around him, and it's just the fact that he just has the knack for big plays. So I think you combine all that factors. Yeah, you can get tape on him, but at the end of the day, when you're such an incredible athlete and such an incredible quarterback, there's only so much tape can do.
All right, I agree with you. Who is not hot?
Who is not? So this is a little double. We're gonna get two teams in here. The Falcons are not hot because Baylor.
Bringing it back.
Bringing it back. Baylor last weekend blew a 28-3 lead. And the last time someone did that, well, was the Atlanta Falcons. And get this, at halftime of this game, when OU was down 31-10, Coach Lincoln Riley played clips from the Patriots' comeback in that game. Then the Sooners go out there and make a comeback. And here's some stats. Since 2014, when the college football playoff era began, teams were 0-162 when trailing a college football ranked team by 24 or more points. And 21-point halftime deficit that Oklahoma overcame is the largest a team has overcome to beat another FCS team that entered the game 9-0 or better since NCAA classification began in 1937. This is way too many words. But it's since 1937. Biggest comeback against a ranked FBS team that is more than 9-0 since 1937.
I mean, I loved your stat, Thomas.
Thank you.
That was a great stat.
Well, it was according to ESPN Stats and Information Research.
Well, you still had to dig it up.
I had to dig it up,
I'll give you some credit for it.
Yeah, Big J over here.
Yeah, Big J. I'll get into my who's hot. The Houston Texans, who your who's hot actually beat on
last
Sunday.
week.
But they played again on Thursday, short week, had the Indianapolis Colts.
Yep, your Colts.
AFC South, my Colts, which is a little frustrating. in a big AFC South showdown. The game was so huge because both teams came in 6-4, and the winner had basically the entire division under their control. Houston Texans winning by a score of 20-17. Now, huge win because the ESPN's, I'll give some numbers of my own, really one number. ESPN's Football Power Index gives the Texans a 74% chance to win the division. The Texans, 8-13 against the Colts this decade. Is this the beginning of Deshaun Watson's rise, Thomas?
I don't know if I would quite go so far as to say the beginning, just because I feel like he has been on the rise. And, you know, you look at him, same class as Mahomes, and, you know, I feel like he kind of came out a little bit his rookie year, and people are saying, oh, look at Deshaun Watson, but, you know, he also obviously struggled with some injuries. But there's been little doubt, I feel like, since he's been playing, even as a rookie, that he was going to be a good player. And so I wouldn't say it's the rise, but I think if the Texans are able to win the division and maybe make a playoff run, then you say, yes, this is the beginning of maybe Deshaun Watson and the Texans kind of moving past the level of scraping past an AFC South or getting a wild card berth and losing in the first round.
That's what I was going to say. I think they can actually use this year and kind of Deshaun Watson maybe doing a Peyton Manning thing where they just dominate the AFC South for a few years, which has got me a little terrified as a Colts fan. Who's not hot? Twitter. After Ben Simmons finally hit a three-point shot, it was in his 172nd NBA game.
Incredible.
Simmons drilled a three, of course against the New York Knicks, which has some people like me saying maybe he still hasn't hit a three against an NBA team since it was the New York Knicks. Maybe not. But Ben Simmons, I mean, he's been working on his shooting.
He has.
We've been seeing it. It was one of the all-time Twitter W's of this year.
So then why is Twitter not hot?
Twitter's not hot. I mean, it's an all-time Twitter W because we saw him posting a lot of those videos.
So Twitter's hot.
Twitter is a little bit hot. No, Twitter's not hot. All of the naysayers on Twitter are not hot.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
Ben Simmons on Twitter is
He's
hot.
hot.
But I like the non-reaction from him.
That's true.
He's like, I just made it. And you know who I was surprised to see did not overreact was Joel Embiid.
That's true, because he is a big reaction
And
guy.
he reacted that way when Ben Simmons hit one in Summer League or in the preseason.
That's right.
And so I guess Ben Simmons, I feel like, might have told him, hey, cut it. We're not going to over-celebrate. But head coach Brett Brown said something that's kind of untrue. He said it was the first legitimate three-point attempt that Simmons has made, kind of some big revisionist history. He's like, well, that's the first real one that he shot. So he was 100% right now.
100%. He went 1-0.
1-0.
As you
He's
can
one
say.
for one.
All right, next up, Tua Tagovailoa. Last Saturday, dislocated his hip against Mississippi State. Bama was up 35-7. It was at the end of the half. Supposed to be his last drive of the game. He gets tackled when he was running out of the pocket, out for the season. Robert, what implications does this have on a number of things?
Well, I don't think it should affect the rankings, and the committee agreed. They didn't really move Alabama at all. I don't think something like that should really change where you rank a team, but this basically changes Alabama's the complexion of their entire season. I mean, now you have to rely on Mac Jones as your quarterback. It's just not the same. Tua Tagovailoa, it's weird. For a long time, Alabama has just been relying on its complete team. You know, it would have good quarterbacks like A.J. McCarron, Coker, but for the most part, you could kind of get by with the next guy. But Tagovailoa was such a big talent, such a Heisman-level candidate that I think this is going to change the entire complexion of the season. They needed a lot of help in general. They're going to have to win out and look impressive. So I think having Mac Jones in there, he could win out and beat Auburn, but I don't know if they're going to get those impressive-looking wins that they need to satisfy the committee.
And we'll talk in a little bit about who we think belongs on this board. But Paul Feinbaum, after the game, said that he expects that this injury will have a quote-unquote chilling effect on college sports, specifically with college football, and he thinks that it's going to have less and less players wanting to play, especially in your minor bowl games. Do you agree with that, Robert?
I would agree. I think the players have to look out for themselves. If they have a lot of money on the line, you have to look out for yourself, for your family. It's a career. And for someone like Tua Tagovailoa, he has to make the tough decisions of maybe let's not play on in a certain game. And I think for the minor bowl games, maybe sitting out is the right move. I know a lot of armchair Twitter enthusiasts will disagree. They'll say, yeah, you need to play for just the honor of the game. But it's one thing to say that when you're not having the opportunity to get paid millions to play.
Well, one thing that I was reminded of this week, hearing Herman talk about his players, and when people were asking him how are they going to still be motivated, with no Big 12 championship on the line, and he goes, these guys are incredibly competitive. There's a reason that they're at these schools. It's because they are so competitive. They don't want to lose. And, I think that's why outside of your top schools, we're not going to see a lot of players sitting out in those minor bowl games, because unless you're, a Texas, a Notre Dame, a Michigan, an Alabama, one of these schools who, if you're not in I would say like an Alamo Bowl, Capital One, but one of those bowls and better, it's kind of a, as we'll talk about in a little bit, maybe like a disappointment. Every other team, when they make the bowl game, they want to win, because that's what they came there to do, is to win games and win the bowl games.
And it's got to be like for a specific player. Not every player is to attack, by the way.
Yeah. All right, next up, delete your Twitter. And this goes to a lot of Texas fans out there on Twitter who want Tom Herman to be fired and clearly have just kind of forgotten about what was going on before Tom Herman came here.
Here we go again. It feels like we do this every week, where Texas fans are just getting out of control. When is this going to end? Because
Never.
Texas, listen, I'll sit here later and tell you how Texas' season is a disappointment. I'll even maybe tell you it was a failure. But a failure for Texas is still, right now, 6-4, going bowling. In his third year, with a lot of injuries on the defensive end, Sugar Bowl win in his second season. I don't think that's a fireable head coach. And Mac Brown didn't win a Big 12 championship until his 8th year.
Well, and something I brought this up when I was on one of our 1-0 podcast rants with Danny Shee. Dabo Swinney's first 3 years at Clemson, his first year 4-3, he came in the middle of the season, wins a minor bowl game. Second year, they go 9-7, win the Music City Bowl, and they were first in their division. They didn't win the ACC though; they lose in the ACC championship. Next year, they go 6-7. After that, Dabo hasn't lost less than 10 games. Fans need to be patient. This stuff takes time. If Auburn wasn't patient, they wouldn't have Gus Malzahn. Who knows who they would have, but I promise you, they would not be a top 15 team right now. If Clemson wasn't patient, they wouldn't have Dabo Swinney. If Alabama wasn't patient, they wouldn't have Nick Saban. You have to be patient with these guys.
Especially when you're trying to move up and do the things that those other programs do. Texas just needs more time.
Yep. Next up, Texas basketball fell last night 82-66 in the Garden to the Georgetown Hoyas. Unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. Texas looking a little disappointing. Last year they started off very hot, beat number 5 North Carolina at the time.
And then led Michigan State for a good 10 minutes.
Yeah, they led Michigan State for a good 10 minutes, who went on to play in the Final Four, whereas Texas NIT champions, defending NIT champions. But Texas kind of looking a little bit disappointing. I don't know where this puts my expectations, because they weren't very high coming into this year, and to lose to Georgetown would be something that I would kind of expect. I think Shaka's actually got a good chance to have a pretty good season. I think Texas, for them, a successful year is get to the NCAA tournament as maybe a 7 or 8 seed and maybe try to win a couple. Sweet 16, I think, is the ceiling for this team.
Well, and you know who this makes hot is Virginia.
Yes.
Because up until this point, Texas was kind of pushing Virginia for the longest active winning streak in college basketball. But now Virginia has it all to themselves.
Well, they also have the national championship.
But so does Texas.
So does Texas.
Let's not forget that.
You win the last game of the season.
Win the last game of the season. You're a national championship. Whether it's NCAA, whether it's NIT, CBI.
I mean, Texas Tech didn't win their last game. They didn't win their last game.
They didn't win their last game.
Texas Tech lost. Texas won.
All right, finally, the college football playoff rankings, updated ones, released on Tuesday. Not much change in the top 6. Robert, do you agree with the fact that largely the same?
I agree with it. I mean, this was always going to be one of those weeks where not much was happening. The big game was Oklahoma-Baylor, and we saw Oklahoma was able to pull that one out.
Do you think that Oklahoma, though, should have jumped up higher?
I don't think so. I think had they played the way they did in the second half, they would have made more of an argument, but I don't think you get credit for going down and then coming back. Had Baylor won in more of a convincing fashion, I think they would have jumped up to maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah, we'll talk more about those rankings throughout the show, and obviously we'll be updating our board at the end of the show. But stick around after this break, because coming up we're going to break down the Baylor matchup that's this weekend. And again, Ari Bastami, famed rapper, celebrity guest, legend, joining us. And then sports director extraordinaire Josh Martell is going to make some picks at the end of the show. Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. And Robert, it's time to talk a little bit of Texas football. Let's start off with the Iowa State game. And in your opinion, what went wrong against Iowa State?
Well, I think a lot of it, you see it on Twitter, but I actually agree with it this time. It's a lack of offensive creativity, not allowing Sam to do what Sam does best, which is make those throws downfield. Coming in, you had Zach Shackelford, you had Derek Kerstetter, guys that could really block. He could really get behind them. I think he was setting himself up for this year, Sam Ehlinger being able to make those plays, being able to make those runs. I think that Tim Beck isn't giving Sam Ehlinger those amount of chances. I think that lack of creativity showed last weekend. Texas wasn't able to get anything going. The defense played pretty good, allowing Iowa State to only really score 23 points. Texas, if you're going to be a Sugar Bowl team, you have to score more than that.
Yeah, in the most Texas way, Texas goes from, oh, they can play offense, can't play defense, and then we flip-flopped, can play defense, can't play offense. For me, the biggest disappointment in the Iowa State game, the area that needs the most improvement, is the run game. You look at what this team did, 26 attempts for 54 yards, 2.1 yards per carry. And Keontae Ingram, who after last week against Kansas State, Texas fans were saying he's looking like he's kind of found his rhythm, he's running well. He had 8 carries for 9 yards. Not exactly the way that you want to carry that momentum. I mean, that's averaging just about a yard per carry, or a yard per carry, 1.1 yards per carry.
Yeah, same thing. All right, so Thomas, looking at a more broad scale, what does this loss mean for Texas' season?
Well, I know you're going to disagree with me a little bit. It's just a disappointment. And again, this goes back to what you set your expectations with. Expectation was the Big 12 championship. You didn't meet that. But 8-4 is still on the table. Beating Baylor is still on the table. A good bowl game is still on the table. So when you look at that, it is not necessarily what a lot of people wanted it to be, but this season wasn't as bad as I think a lot of Texas fans are reacting right now. And you look at a close loss against LSU that, Texas really could have won. Keontae Ingram drop away from winning. Oklahoma, which was a largely close game. TCU and Iowa State, tough games, but on the road. And Robert, you've mentioned it a lot of times when you have these teams who are in close games one season, the next season they're going to drop some. But the talent is there. There's a lot of guys getting experience for next season. So it's a disappointment, but I don't think you can say, throw out all hope, especially for next season.
Yeah, when we were preparing this question, Thomas, I thought I was going to disagree a lot with what you were saying. But as you said that, I realized it's really just semantics, because we really agree on this point. I call it a failure because Tom Herman every Monday gets up there and he's our goal is to win a Big 12 championship.
Right.
They can no longer really do that. They can get a lot of help, but for the most part, they're statistically kind of out of it. And for me, that makes the season a failure, because if you're going after something, you don't get it, that's a failure. But as you said, 8-4 is on the table. Going to a bowl game like the Texas Bowl, it can kind of be a little bit like misconstrued as to like, oh, it doesn't matter. But those games matter as far as recruiting goes.
Oh, yeah.
Recruits need to see that. It gets you good experience for players. Sam Ehlinger is still going to benefit from a bowl. It doesn't matter, even if he's like been to a Sugar Bowl, because you get to play an out-of-conference opponent.
Right.
And you did another great game. I think after that LSU game, it kind of messed with Texas's psyche. But it might be a little bit of revisionist history because of all of the injuries. But I think that if Texas had won that game and they were so close, I mean, you said a Keontae Ingram drop away perhaps, I think the entire season would have been different in nature.
Yeah, I think that's a good point when you bring up recruiting. 8-4 looks a lot better to recruits than 6-6.
That's true. They're materially different seasons.
All right, so now looking at the Baylor game. Baylor's coming into this week 9-1 off the loss to Oklahoma, but still ranked 14. Who's a player that you're watching in this game?
I'm going to take Tyquan Thornton. He's the number 2 wide receiver behind Denzel Mims, who gets a lot of the media attention and also a lot of the quarterback attention, a lot of the DB attention. But Thornton's doing very well. He's the number 2 in wide receiving yards, and I think he can have a breakout game this week against Texas's secondary. What about you?
For me, it's got to be James Lynch, and this guy, the first guy that Matt Rule visited when he started coaching at Baylor, the senior D lineman, has been one of the best defensive linemen in the Big 12. 30 total tackles, 14 solo tackles, 8.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 4 pass deflections, 11 quarterback hurries. He is always in the backfield, always causing havoc back there. And with the Texas offensive line struggling as much as they have this season, if James Lynch can get in the backfield, it's game over for Texas.
I agree. And you said James Lynch was one of the first guys that Matt Rule went. Matt Rule went 1-11 in his first season. So maybe a little bit of patience from Texas fans.
A little bit of patience,
All
yes.
right. So what is this Baylor game going to come down to ultimately?
Well, for me, I talked about it earlier. I talk about it every week. Whoever establishes the run game and wins the battle of the trenches wins this game. Texas, every game where they have started out running the ball well, has ended up winning the game. When you really look at the tape, when Texas loses the game, it's when the D-line is getting the push against the O-line. When the O-line can get that push up front, they win the game. However, if Baylor comes out and they're moving that Texas defensive line and Texas can't move the Baylor defensive line, Baylor would win. So it's going to come down to a classic battle of the trenches.
Yeah, I think me and you kind of more classic, kind of a little cliche, because I'm going to say the entire focus for Texas will be on their defense because Charlie Brewer, I'm interested to see how he's going to respond from last week's loss to Oklahoma. When you blow that huge lead, you blow 28-3.
Yeah.
It's something that you have to get over. And
ask Matt Ryan.
Yeah, for real. Matt Ryan has not been the same since that 28-3 loss. I mean, the Falcons fell off, have not been seen from since. So the Baylor Bears, I think they're going to come back, but we're going to see can Brewer put those points on the board.
Yeah, certainly should be a good game. We will give you our spread predictions in a little bit. But coming up next, legendary, famous, celebrity, can we say enough? Arya Bastami is going to join the show in the Want to Know Sports locker room and take some questions from the crowd. Stick around. You don't want to miss it. Welcome in to the Want to Know Sports locker room. And now joining us,
good to be here, man.
Arya Bastami.
Good to be here. Thank you guys.
I don't know if we need any other words to describe you other than famed rapper, celebrity, legend, maybe biggest guest of the show.
Long walks on the beach.
Long walks on the beach.
I enjoy that. I enjoy that.
Yeah. All right, so what we're going to be doing, we sent out a tweet, as we often do on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and asked the crowd to send us some questions.
Okay.
So the first question, or groups of questions, comes from our boy, Justin Morris _Texas.
Shout out
First one, shout out Justin. First one, Tua, injured, out for the season. What does that do to Auburn's chances in the Iron Bowl in a couple weeks?
I mean, come on, dude. When you smell, if you're a shark, when you smell blood in the water, you're attacking. I think this does everything for Auburn, especially with the morale to go absolutely bananas on a team that they've always had a tumultuous, rivalry with.
Right.
So I think, that's pretty telling for the Auburn defense. I'm sure everybody over on that side is saying, okay, well, we've got an extremely talented quarterback that's not going to be playing anymore. A guy that's always, for the most part of the season was in Heisman contention. So without him, it's a pretty good morale booster if you're Auburn.
Yeah, and we were talking about it earlier. This is an Alabama team that is now reliant on the quarterback. Granted, they have a lot of other offensive weapons, but they're an offensive team.
Yeah,
they're not a team that's trying to beat you 9-6.
Absolutely.
They're a team that's trying to beat you 45-20.
Yeah.
And without Tua, we'll see if Mac Jones can do that.
Yeah, it's weird. Back in the day, you would be like, oh, well, whoever they throw in is fine. But now it's Mac Jones, which I think he's going to answer the call. I think he'll play pretty well.
Yeah,
but like
not a lot
I
of
said,
experience.
I think Auburn's going to feast on the fact that Tua is not there.
Yeah.
They're just going to have that mental drive. It's just going to be a different game.
All right, next question from Justin. He said, if Oregon and Oklahoma win out, respectively have conference titles, who do you put in the college football playoff? And this is assuming that LSU beats Georgia to take them out of contention.
Oh, man. It's difficult because anytime, I'd like to see a Pac-12 team win, but we've seen what happens when they get in there,
Well, we've also seen what happens when Oklahoma gets in there.
Very true.
Oh, well, they've had some better games.
They've had better games.
Better games.
That's what I'm saying. It's just when you have that, it's like getting a ticket to Disneyland, okay, but you can't ride any of the rides. You got there.
It's Washington.
That's Washington.
That is
You got
Washington.
there.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you
Yeah.
can see Space Mountain, but you're not riding Space Mountain. So, I mean, I'd like to see a Pac-12 team in. I'd like to see Oregon in, to be honest with you, and take any objectivity out as of where I go to school. But I think Oklahoma would still be the better team to be in. They have more offensive firepower, and they're just more geared to play against the competition that you would see in these championship games.
Robert, what do you
Yeah, I
think?
would say the one loss, the advantage would go to Oregon, just because their one loss came to Auburn, whereas Oklahoma, Kansas State. But the fact that Oklahoma kind of plays better teams on a weekly basis than the Pac-12, I agree with Ari. I'd go with Oklahoma.
I think it's going to come down to a couple things. First of all, Oregon's going to be rooting big for Auburn to beat Alabama because that significantly makes their loss look better. And then I think it comes down to how do both teams look in the conference championship game. Utah last couple weeks has looked pretty good. If Oregon goes in there, blows out Utah, all of a sudden we're saying, hey, that's a quality win.
That's fair.
Same with Oklahoma. If they can start fast against Baylor, not have to come back and be in a close game against Baylor. So again, that I think to me it all comes down to how they look in the conference championship games and how especially Auburn does.
That could be tough if it's like a similar game.
Yeah.
If they both play pretty well.
All right, final question from Justin. This is important.
Okay.
If you have a turkey and cheese sandwich, Ari, what kind of cheese are you putting on that sandwich?
Oh, man. Okay, are we talking sliced turkey?
I think you have to be talking sliced.
Well, yeah,
we're talking
sliced
sandwich.
turkey, yeah,
Well,
sliced-
I mean,
no,
we're
it's
getting
a,
close to
We are getting close.
Yeah,
we're not
making
talking.
sure.
We're not
That's
talking
true.
like little leftovers.
When you put turkey out there,
Yeah,
So,
sliced turkey.
okay.
That is a good distinction.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, in my opinion, okay, I like a sharp cheddar
Okay.
or pepper jack. I don't think you go wrong.
No.
You get a little melted pepper jack in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think melted is the key.
Yeah.
You got to
Oh,
go
it has to
melted.
be melted.
Melted,
The cheese
melted,
has to be
But
melted.
you know what cheese melts well? Munster.
Munster does melt well, but here's the thing about Munster, okay? Is that if it's not melted, or even if it's semi-melted, it needs to be completely melted. Like
Okay.
a pepper jack, you still get the flavor.
Right.
Like a sharp cheddar, you still get the flavor, even if it isn't completely melted. Munster?
It's got. Oh yeah.
You taste the
yeah.
cold, you taste the refrigeration,
That's
and
true.
that's a game I don't like to play. So if I'm going out somewhere and I'm getting a sandwich,
Yeah.
throw Munster on there. But if it's myself, I'm not taking the risk. Can't
Man,
do
so
it.
you had like different contingencies.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'd probably just go pepper
I'm a
jack.
cheese guy.
Pepper jack, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
pepper
I
jack.
could
Yeah.
tell.
Oh, yeah.
I was a little unsure if I
Here's-
thought like
here's
me
the
bringing
thing
up
about
Munster, people would be
Munster.
like, "What's that?" But
Yeah.
obviously,
He
I'm.
said,
Gorgon's-
here's the thing about Munster. Yeah.
Gorgonzola, people sleep, dude. I'm a cheese guy.
Well, Justin, there's your answer. Next question from not underscore, just S Mapes, the legend.
Oh, the legend.
Sean Mapes.
Yeah, shout
Maybe
out
my
to
favorite
Sean.
question of this block.
Yeah.
What Kanye song best describes Texas's season?
Well, if we're talking Tom Herman can't tell me nothing. Because he really just doesn't listen. But Texas's season, follow God, because that's what they need to do if they need to win any more games at this point, man.
Robert?
I'm saying Father stretch my hands.
That's
Man,
good
dude,
too.
and
I
then
like
4
that.
losses.
I like that one too.
Well, for me, I'm
Yeah.
saying champions because obviously we were talking about Texas volleyball.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
okay.
No, but honestly, I was like, okay, I got to come up with like a really good answer.
Yeah.
Here's the song, Paranoid. You watch this team
Oh,
play.
yeah.
Since the Oklahoma State game, they've played Paranoid.
Yeah.
Malcolm Roach jumping
Good
off
song,
sides.
too.
Yeah.
Devin Duvernay dropping wide open screen passes. This team's in their head.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could
Why
also,
are you so paranoid?
you could also say that to like Texas fans on Twitter.
yeah,
And
they're
why- yeah.
I'm paranoid watching Texas.
Yeah.
Rihanna was great on that song.
She was
Yeah,
good
she
at that
was.
song.
That's a good
All right, this is from another legend, S_Hellwick. Steve.
Oh, Steve.
King.
He says, which of these lockdown defenders, pesky defenders, would you rather have on your team between Patrick Beverley and Marcus Smart?
Wow. Okay. Now, I'm not going to take the Russell Westbrook approach of how I think Patrick Beverley plays defense, because I do think he's actually an extremely talented defensive player. And, you know, there's this meme that goes on Twitter where it's like a guy barking at some dogs, and it's like, this is how Patrick Beverley practices for defense.
Yeah.
I genuinely think he's the more aggressive defender and knows
Yeah.
how to play closer to a body without getting fouls called. Marcus Smart is still learning to do that. He's still younger in his
Yep.
career, obviously. Smart is. So I think as of right now, I would pick Patrick Beverley. But I mean, both of them are great. Like Marcus Smart's highlight against Kawhi, where he throws it off his foot, diving out of bounds, and then it was Celtics ball was unreal.
For me, what it comes down to is, are we looking strictly defensive? Strictly defensive, I think, like you said, Patrick Beverley is a better player. Marcus Smart, for me, offers a little more offensive
Sure, yeah.
scoring. So if you're saying which would you rather have on the team, I might say Smart. But if we're saying strictly defense, it's got to be Pat Bev.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, he's like pesky and annoying, but that's good.
Yeah.
You want somebody like that.
If you're on Patrick Beverley's team, you're the happiest man alive.
Next question from Steve. No surprise, he's asking us about the group of fives. So looking at SMU, Boise State, App State.
All right.
Question.
So he says, now in the AP poll, SMU is ranked behind those teams. So he says, look at their resumes. Do you feel that SMU should be slighted being ranked at the AP poll behind these two teams?
Man.
You want to tell me about App State's resume, Arya?
I know you're so passionate about it.
I looked it up last night.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, Steve. But look, I love you, man, but I'm not keeping up like that with. I mean, sure. You know what? Sure. SMU should be slighted. Throw it.
Shane Buechele.
Do we want App State? Are we pulling for App State right now?
We're pulling for all these teams. They're not playing each
The
other.
little guy. The little
They're
guy.
all the little guys.
Let's go App State.
Okay.
All right.
Steve.
Hey,
I'll
well,
buy
they're
an
playing
App State
Texas
sweater.
State this week, local team.
Okay.
They can all shine.
They can all
App
shine.
State,
Let's all
SMU,
shine.
They can all shine.
They'll all shine.
Well, I did look at their resumes.
Nice.
Ooh.
And to me, the most impressive resume of them is Boise State. You look at the teams that they've beaten. Their one loss coming to BYU when Hank Bachmeier was injured. But they've had a lot of dominating wins and tougher opponents for the most part than App State. But here's what I'll say about App State. They have 2 wins against North Carolina and South Carolina. Those are 2 FBS wins.
Both the Carolinas, too.
Both the Carolinas, the SMU or Boise State don't have.
Yeah.
And Boise State or SMU to me hasn't looked. I mean, they lost to Memphis 2 weeks ago. They had a close game. Against Tulsa, and they've looked good. But I think they deserve to be where they are. All right, final question from Steve. Ari, I think you're our best expert for this question.
Okay.
Last year, Steve's final Pluck hunt at Pluckers. Steve is a legend at Pluck hunt. He finished 3rd place. Would you say this was a quality loss?
No, because Steve is a first place kind of guy.
Yeah.
Steve deserved first place. The role just didn't go into Steve's favor, and when he comes back, we've made it a vow that when he comes back, we're going to Pluckers, we're going on a Pluck hunt night, and we're not getting anything less than first place.
Yeah.
It's just not right. When you have a legend, okay, walk amongst the people, the laymen, if you will, of Pluckers, myself included. If I'm around Steve, that's it. Pluckers is his spot.
It is.
So for him to get 3rd place, the audacity that establishment has, I'm coming right at you, the audacity that establishment has to giving him 3rd place.
Right.
They didn't even hang up the jersey that
They
we
didn't?
made for
That's
him.
true.
The Hellwood jersey.
That was disrespectful.
A lot of disrespect. And
A lot
I
of
was there for that night. There were no other tough opponents. That's the thing. If it's quality loss, it has to be against a quality team. And
Absolutely.
it felt like the judges maybe a little bit slighted him.
There was. We'll talk about it off.
Yeah.
We'll
Well,
talk about it.
yeah.
We'll off.
All right, let's get a little baseball. Just a little bit. We like a little bit of baseball in our 1-0 Sports Show. This from none other than Daniel_She. 88, Danny She. What should the Astros' punishment be for cheating?
Well, on College Crossfire.
Correct.
Wednesday.
Shout out.
Shout out College Crossfire. One of the suggestions were that they should be eliminated from postseason contention.
Oh, a bowl band.
A bowl band.
Yeah.
And if you're asking me personally, throw it in there, man. Like, get them out.
Yeah.
Get them right out. I know they're not the only team in the MLB to do this. So to say that
But that's just going to make them want to tank.
fair.
So are you going to take away some draft picks as well?
I would do that as well. Go ahead and SMU them. Listen,
Oh,
I
okay, yeah,
understand.
death penalty.
I
Give him a
understand.
death penalty.
I understand. The people of Houston, I have nothing against them. Okay.
I do.
And oh, that's fair.
Just wait.
And I'm not gonna sit here and say that it's okay to what they've done because again, it's ignorance. The Red Sox have been notoriously known for doing this. Even the Yankees have done this before. Daniel, let's be real, buddy. Okay, the Yankees aren't completely innocent in this, but to have it to the extent to where the Astros were and what they're doing, it's like if you're cheating on an exam, okay, and you do poorly on the exam, no one's really gonna care.
It's
But
true.
if you do extremely well, and the Astros have done extremely well for themselves as an organization as of late, you kind of got to point some fingers, and you got to do some. There has to be some reprimandment in some way, and I think that's really one of the best ways that you could go about it. Is the MLB going to do it? Absolutely not, because the Astros are bringing in a lot of money for them.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just a suggestion.
I feel like it would have been a much bigger deal had Houston won.
Oh,
this year's
yeah.
World Series. It would have been
Absolutely,
huge. It would
absolutely.
have been huge. But
Yeah.
that was kind of their punishment, I feel like.
You think?
In a lot of people's eyes.
Here's what I
It's like-
think. Throw them out of the league. It's a great team down.
Move the
great
team.
team down
Move the team to
I-35, the
Seattle.
San Antonio Missions. Throw them in there. Give San Antonio a baseball
San Antonio
team.
Missions.
Give San
You got the
Antonio a
name, you got
baseball
the
team.
branding, you got everything.
You got the branding. It's all there.
You have the logos
It
ready
is
to go.
all there for the taking.
Let's go Missions, I guess.
All right.
I mean,
I think you're more right. Final questions come from Turner Barnes 5, host of College Crossfire. First one: where does Luka rank among players in the NBA?
Wow. As of right now, so I've been having this discussion with a lot of people lately. If Luka can get the Mavericks within the 1 to 4 spot
Yeah.
in the West, he is in absolute contention for MVP of the
Yeah.
season. There's no debate there. But see, the only thing is that you're only going to have some outlandish feat, like when Westbrook averaged a triple-double, OKC was the 7th seed. And that's the only way he got that MVP. But
Yeah.
now that precedent is already set with Russell Westbrook, so even if Luka
You got
did that,
to way top
yeah,
that.
you have to do something astronomical. So the only thing is the Mavericks have to be between 1 to 4. But I think right now he's ranking in the top 10 easily. He's a top 10 player. He's putting up a triple-double, dang near close to it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he's playing fantastic basketball. And now the Mavs have good role players around them. So I think he's a top 10 player right now. By the end of the season, he could be top 5.
Yeah.
It was like, didn't he have almost like a triple-double in one half the other night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely top 10.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Players right now.
All right, final question. Who has the smoothest jump shot in the NBA?
Oh, man, even though Klay Thompson is injured, I really think
Yeah.
That's what I was going to
that's what I
say.
was
Yeah.
gonna say too.
Clay-
Yeah, that's it.
Clay's jump shot is so textbook. It's so beautiful to watch. I mean, prior to him, not maybe, but Ray Allen and even Carmelo Anthony to an extent, because he just doesn't extend his arm.
Yeah.
He just
yeah.
flicks his wrist,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous when you're pulling up from like 50 feet and just, I don't know. But I'd say, even though he's injured, Klay Thompson.
Yeah. I agree with you, Aria. Always a pleasure having
Thank
you
you
on.
guys.
Great having you to join
Thank you
us
guys for having me on,
this
man.
semester. When we come back, Robert and I are going to be filling out that bracket back in the studio, and sports director, the guy who's behind the camera right now, Josh Martella, is going to join us for some picks.
Let's go.
You really don't want to miss the end of this show.
Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. Let's get into the best thing
Yep,
on Twitter.
best thing on
Probably
Twitter.
the best thing in the entire world this week.
Yep.
Carmelo Anthony coming back simply out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Same day that they said he was going to come back, he starts.
Yeah, let's hear what he had to
let's
say
hear
at
it.
the podium.
Or the concept of starting at the 4 or even coming off the bench. And the second question is...
Who, me?
Oh. I guess that answers that part.
I mean, I don't know where that started, where that came from. Hey, P, they said I got to come off the bench.
I love how much Carmelo hates coming off the bench,
Yeah.
especially with he's a good player, but
Yeah.
he's not a starter in the NBA.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think when the Blazers signed him, you need some help.
You need
Melo's
some
a
help.
starter. Melo's a starter. For
You think
sure.
he's a starter?
I think he's a starter. And I'm glad to see him a little bit happier, back in the lead where he
Yeah.
belongs, not in the Garden or in the Nets.
Definitely good having him back, that's
Yeah.
for sure. All right, let's get to our fantasy football start sit of the week. Robert, who are you starting?
I'm starting. I got it in again this week.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield. He's playing Miami, and the rule is whenever you're playing Miami, just start whoever that is. I know Baker hasn't been playing that hot this season as much as people thought with all the expectations, but he's been playing pretty well. I'd say take him this week.
My start follows another rule. It's called if you're playing Washington, go ahead and start him. Bo Scarborough, who literally got signed last week before the game, had a good game for Detroit. Their backfield's all sorts of banged up. Kerryon Johnson on the IR for the rest of the season. Redskins defense, Redskins anything.
That's some
Not
that's
good.
some big
Start
time fan
Scarborough.
pessimism there. I love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
and I think you would know
feeling
that
it
as a Colts fan.
Yeah, I'm feeling it right now.
Who are you sitting?
I'm sitting Sony Michel. He's been struggling recently. I think his touches will mostly go to Rex Burkhead. I'd say stay away from Michel.
My sit's going to be Josh Allen, and I liked him last week. He had a good game, but don't get caught up in that. They're playing the Broncos. They have a good defense. I think this is a week where Allen regresses just a little bit.
All right, let's get into our college football playoff.
This is big. This is it.
Predictions.
Second to last one of the semester.
Second to last one, so we got to make them count.
They got to count. All right. And I will say this little teaser. If you were about to turn off the TV, there's a new team in my top 4.
Ooh.
Starting off at number 1, though, LSU. Go Tigers.
I'm going Ohio State. I think we still are pretty much in
We're
agreement.
still pretty
on
much
these
in
two.
agreement. These two teams, by far the best 2 teams in the country. But, I mean, I'll say this about Clemson. Clemson is starting to really get in a groove. They've looked good the last couple weeks. They're a solid number 3 team. I don't see them losing out.
Well, you did my analysis for me, Thomas. I perfectly agree on that one. Clemson number 3.
All right, number 4. This is big. No Alabama, and I know this is big for me because Alabama was number 1 at the beginning of the season. Without Tua, I don't see them as a contender. But the Oregon Ducks,
You're throwing the O up
throwing
today.
the O up, the Ducks are making the top 4.
Man. All right, well, I'm throwing OU again. I think they're going to win out and get some help. I think Oregon may stumble up against Utah. I just think eventually their resume is just going to be better.
All right, well, a little bit of different changes to the board. I like it. Starting to get some chaos.
Different colors on there. Yeah.
Some different
green.
colors. I know, some green.
Yeah, some green.
That's
Finally,
good.
yeah, we got something.
And coming up next, we've teased it all show. Josh Bartella making his first on-air appearance this semester. You really don't want to miss it. We're making all our spread picks coming up next. Welcome in to the 1-0 Sports Show for the last time. And now joining us, this is big. For the first time. Ever. Josh Bartella, the guy who does everything for this show, all the graphics, all the directing, everything. He's joining us. Before we get to that, Robert, let's take a look at our standings.
All right, let's get into it. I picked against you in everything because I needed to get back into it, and it kind of worked. I'm still down 8, so I'm going to do the same thing again this week. But I'm going to be a little smarter because there were some games I was like, why didn't I just agree with them? And I could have gone 10-0.
Right.
So I'm just doing me, and then hopefully I'll come back. But I'm down by 8 now. You have 65 wins. I have 57. Went 8-2. You went 4-6.
Yeah.
For the guest update, Turner went 6-4. Still nobody touching that 8-2 that James Grant.
James Grant.
I got his last name. Yeah.
I can tell you that.
I think I'll go 10-0.
All right.
10-0 here.
Let's just get into it. First game, we talked a little bit about this in C Block with Aria, number 24, App State, 29 point favorites against the Texas State Bobcats.
Man, it's kind of crazy. Appalachian State playing teams like South Carolina, and then they play Texas State.
Yeah.
To see this, I'm going to take App State. They've been playing some great football. I think they win this one.
Yeah, I know App State's ranked and everything, but 29 points seems like a lot. Yeah, I have to go with our Texas brethren.
The rival of I-35. For me, what it comes down to is the fact that App State, their offense, can get things done in the last couple weeks. They've looked really good on offense. I think they cover here.
All right, next game, Navy, 3.5-point favorites against SMU. Who do y'all have?
Navy lost to Notre Dame last week. You know who hasn't lost to Notre Dame? Shane Buechele.
Good pick.
Good pick.
Good pick. I got SMU winning here.
Same here. I kind of can't believe Navy gets 3.5-point favorites after they just got drubbed by Notre Dame last week. I'm going to take SMU. Lock of the week.
Lock of the week. All right. Number 6, Oregon. This team right over there. 14.5-point favorites they're going into Tempe and facing the fighting Herm Edwards.
Well, Tempe's a dangerous place to play. Herm Edwards got them rolling, but I like Oregon right now. I think they're on a mission. I think they're going to win out. I think they're going to try to do that. We'll see. I don't know, but I have Oregon this week.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Robert. There, I got Oregon this week.
I know I have them at number 4.
But they're not going to cover.
But 14.5 points is a lot of points. Herm Edwards is doing things right at this program. And guess what? Tempe's a tough place to play. You know what they say. You go into Tempe at night, who knows what's going to happen.
Tempe's crazy. Tempe's awesome. I love Tempe, man.
That's what they say.
Yeah,
Aria's
that is what they say.
That's what they say.
Who says that, Tom?
Who says that? They say it. They do.
They say. All right, let's get to let's move on from Tempe to LA. USC versus UCLA. USC 14-point favorites.
Josh?
I mean, I generally do not trust USC.
Yeah.
And this UCLA team, no matter how good they are this year, they are 2 years away, 2 years removed from coming back against Texas A&M. So
it's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I think they cover.
For me, this was close. I think the 14-point spread, it'll be right on that spread. UCLA had looked good the last couple weeks until they got slammed by Utah last week. But USC is rolling. They've won 3 in a row. I think they keep it going.
You know, I just changed my pick right here in
Oh
the,
my
in the
gosh.
Google Doc. I'm going to go UCLA. That wasn't because you did it. It's because Josh had a very convincing argument
What,
for me.
2 years ago?
2 years ago, the comeback.
You
I'm
do
feeling
realize
the
that
comeback.
that was 2 years
That was
ago.
2 years ago, but I think they bring that
Different
magic
coach.
back. I'm taking UCLA. I'm taking UCLA. All right.
Chip Kelly. All right.
All right. Oh,
Great
that's you.
logic,
This is
great
you.
logic.
My
This
bad.
is
This is you. I'm
Come on,
sorry.
play
I'm
it.
trying to take your game.
Number 9, Oklahoma, 19-point favorites against TCU.
I like Oklahoma here. They have something to prove after last week. Jalen Hurts didn't celebrate after they sealed that win because he knew, they should have been playing like that. So I think they're going to use that momentum, destroy TCU.
Texas lost to Oklahoma by only 7
7.
points. Texas lost to TCU by 10 points. That's only 17 points. You got to go with TCU.
Good pick. I do think
Yeah.
Oklahoma wins this game, but the last couple weeks they've been cutting it closer and closer. I mean, you can't cut it any closer than having to come back from 28-3. 19 points is too much against a TCU team that really likes to slow things down. I think TCU slows things down enough that 19 points is just a little bit too much to cover.
All right, this next game just means more. Out in the SEC, number 4 Georgia, 13.5-point favorites against A&M.
I mean, there's no way you can come on this show and pick A&M.
No.
You gotta go
Yeah.
with Georgia.
Yeah, and it's a home game. They're going into Sanford Stadium there in Athens.
Yeah.
I got no reason to pick against Georgia. And you look at the A&M, they're 7-3, but those 7 wins have not come against quality opponents.
That's true. Even if I wanted to pick A&M, I wouldn't do
No.
it. So I'm going to take
I'm glad
Georgia.
you're not picking against me, at
I'm
least
not,
on this
No,
one.
I won't. Yeah, I'm not going to do
Paul
that.
Feinbaum this
No
week.
Paul Feinbaum of the week this week. I'm still Paul Feinbaum. I'm still picking SEC.
Yeah,
I'm like
that's true,
taking,
yeah.
I'm taking the dogs. Yeah, I'm taking the dogs. All right.
All right, let's go back to the best conference out there, Big 12. Where
Yeah, he couldn't even get through that with a
Yeah, I
straight
couldn't
face.
get through that
Yeah.
with a straight face. Number 21, not number 1. Oklahoma
Number 1
State. I really
in my
messed
heart.
myself up.
Number
saying
1 in
Big
my
12.
heart.
Number 1 in all of our hearts. Oklahoma State 7-point favorite at West Virginia.
Let me think here. Because Oklahoma State's been playing very well.
have.
But then they go into Lubbock and they just lose their minds.
Yeah.
So I have no idea which Cowboy team is going to show up. But West Virginia hasn't been playing that consistent of football. I'm going to go Oklahoma State here.
Yeah, if Texas can go to Morgantown and win by 11, I think Oklahoma State can do it.
West Virginia has actually played worse at home than they have on the road. However, Spencer Sanders out for the season. That's certainly going to have an impact. I think West Virginia covers this.
Oh, man. That's a good pick.
Thank you.
It's a good pick for me. Number 2, Ohio State. 18-point favorites against
Big
number
spread.
8, Penn
Big
State.
spread for a top 10 matchup.
Yeah, top 10 matchup favored by 18. Who do y'all have?
18 points is a lot.
Yeah.
And Penn State's only losses to Minnesota.
Yep.
I just think that's too many points. You got to go with Penn State.
To be completely honest, when I was going through and making these picks, I didn't write one down because, it's tough.
Yeah.
I do think, again, this is another game that I think will come down to being pretty close to this line. Screw it. I got Ohio State.
Iowa State. You got Iowa State on number 2.
No.
They're coming
Wow.
back.
Wow. Ohio State's going to cover the spread, and that means Robert's picking Penn State.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Penn State. I think Ohio State's probably going to win this one, and they're probably going to win it big. But I need to get back in this one, ladies and gentlemen. And I got no shot if I just agree with them all day. So I'm going to go Penn
Expert
State.
betting advice.
Expert betting advice. I'm betting against Thomas. So I've had a few bad weeks. Maybe I get some few good weeks. So maybe pick me this week. All right, number 14 Baylor. 5.5-point favorites against the Texas Longhorns, who feel like they haven't covered a spread in ages.
They covered.
Did they cover last week?
They cover
Yeah,
a
they
lot of
covered
spreads.
Oh,
I don't know what you're talking
always
about.
get Texas wrong, I think.
Okay.
I think
You're
it's
like
just
me.
me.
They're
You're Michigan. They're my Michigan. I
Which,
just
by the way,
can't do
I was
it
wrong
right.
about Michigan next week. Notice we're not picking a Michigan game this week.
Last
Week,
Yeah, I got to make sure we get Michigan games in there if I'm trying to come
All
back.
right. So, Josh, who are you picking, Baylor or Texas?
I mean, I see this game as similar to the TCU game 2 years ago, where I believe that was Herman's really only blowout loss. I think that's going to happen again this
Wow.
week. And since we're not having a show next week. I'm gonna go ahead and pick Texas Tech.
Wow,
on the
so you
outright.
say
Whoa.
Texas going 6-6.
Yes, I do not trust this.
I
team at
can't
all.
believe that. I have Texas at least covering. I don't know if they win, but Texas, they love to make games close.
Yeah,
As does Baylor.
I wrote down Baylor, but this just doesn't feel right. I think Ellinger's going to come out and prove something.
There we go.
Do not trust. The
Okay.
I'm going to go Texas.
All right. Sunday Night Football, 49ers, 3-point favorites against the Packers.
I've been waiting all week for Sunday night. And I'm going to go with Jimmy G. I'm sorry. Am I even allowed to say that phrase? Okay. Jimmy G and the 49er gang, they've been playing some great football. I think they keep it rolling against the Packers.
I don't really watch NFL football that much, but I did see the end of.
Okay, Boomer.
Oh.
Sorry.
But Boomer does the countdown.
Yeah, I did see the end of the Arizona 49ers game, and if you have to go on a last-minute drive to beat the 2-win
Yeah.
That's
Cardinals, you're not going to beat the Packers.
That's a good
Good
point.
pick.
That's a good point.
Good pick. The
That's a good point.
49ers, they lost to the Seahawks 2 weeks ago. Close game against the Cardinals. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, they're getting it done this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that. All
Okay,
right.
yeah.
10-0.
10-0.
10-0
We'll see.
picks from
We'll see
Josh.
what happens. But Josh, thanks for joining us. I will say you killed it. First time on air. Woo! Big show.
Don't expect any more of this.
For everyone watching this, thanks for joining us on your Friday morning. For everybody in Master Control, which is just one person, shout out Adam Ogburn.
Shout out to
directing
Aria, too.
this. Shout out Aria helping out. Again, Josh Martella, Robert Trevino, I'm Thomas Fitch. Have a great weekend.